All right, without further ado, it's time to bring on the man who covers Texas high school football and many other local sports here in Corpus Christi. It is Quinton Martinez of the Caller-Times, Corpus Christi Caller-Times own Quinton Martinez on the line. Quinton, good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no problem, Quinton. So, of course, this past week, we had 4 teams in the regionals. We had Calallen, you had Flower Bluff, you had Vets Memorial, and you had Refugio. We'll start off with a couple of teams that lost their matchups. Calallen loses to Boerne 49-14. And me personally, and I think I can speak for everybody here in this studio, I did not expect a Boerne team to blow out Calallen the way they did. I mean, what happened to Calallen in that game, Quinton?
You know, I know you got a chance to see, you got the chance to see Boerne earlier this year.
Yes.
Boerne might have been the best team I'd seen. You know, got to give credit to Veterans Memorial with the way they're playing right now. But just at the time when they took GP pretty solidly and Ray Akins, you know, I thought Boerne was the most impressive team I had seen. But, you know what, when you go out and you return the open kickoff for a touchdown, I mean, that just sets a tone. And that's what Boerne did on Friday night. And, you know, I was shocked. I mean, I think they scored 42 points in the first half. And against the Calallen defense, that is pretty much unheard of. But, you know, Boerne can do it all. They're big up front. They could run the ball. They could pass the ball. And, you know, not being able to focus on one aspect of what you need to shut down, I think that might have had an effect for Calallen. So it was surprising. And, you know, I didn't think Calallen was going to win the game, but I was shocked by how many points they gave up and how easily Boerne took that game.
What's your takeaway about Calallen at the conclusion of their season? Of course, you know, Steve Campbell, longtime defensive coordinator, taking over the reins for legendary head coach Phil Danaher. What are your final takeaways from Calallen this year? Is it status quo? You know, it's Calallen is Calallen. Is there anything really to take away other than that Steve Campbell was able to keep this thing going?
I'll be really interested to see next year if they have the same, impetus to kind of keep passing the ball a little bit more to kind of make that offense a little more diverse, or if you're going to kind of see them revert back to what you saw forever during Danaher's tenure, you know, that they're going to really rely on that rushing attack. You know, was this year a product of having a guy that could pass and run in Bryce Burnett, or you know, is this a conscious effort that they're making to kind of try to diversify the offense a little bit more? Because, I mean, you'll always be able to count on that defense. That's never going to change as long as Campbell's there. It's just, you saw a little bit of changes, some subtle stuff this year, but Burnett kind of fit what they wanted to do. When they have a new guy behind center, is that going to change what they do? I think that'll be the biggest thing. But there's no reason to think that Calallen's going away anytime soon, that's for sure.
We're here with Quinton Martinez of the Corpus Christi Caller-Times talking Texas high school football.
Hey, Alex here. Do you think that regardless of if Calallen was able to win, they would have faced Chapel Hill? Let's say they beat Chapel Hill and make it to states. Do you think that they would have had any shot at beating China Spring?
I would say, just based on what we saw, you know, I think one of the things that's crazy watching Calallen enough over the last 6-7 years since I've been here in the Coastal Bend is they're such a physical team, but sometimes that kind of takes their toll on Calallen as well. And they're kind of banged up and nicked up. And aside from the year when they played Aledo and they really were a couple plays away from maybe winning the state title, you know, they get banged up, and, you know, that maybe, you know, the last week of the season that they're not playing as good and it's high caliber. You know, if they could play at the level they played against Quare early in the season, you know, I would give them a chance to be competitive against anybody. But saying that, you know, obviously it's a tougher haul. You get to the Region 3 matchup is tough, and then Region 1 and Region 2 are really, really good. Yeah. So, I mean, I would have had a hard time thinking that Calallen could have run the gauntlet of Boerne, then next week, and then to be able to hold up China Spring. That's 3, like, would be ridiculous level games that they would have had to have won.
For sure. That'd be massive. Switching gears here, Quinton, Flower Bluff and Liberty Hill, that one took place up in San Antonio on Friday night at Dub Ferris Stadium. Flower Bluff falls to Liberty Hill 63-43. That triple option offense of Liberty Hill just seemed to be a little bit too much for the Hornets.
You know, and speaking of playing at the right time, I mean, Flower Bluff, you know, you can't, you know, they get the one play they absolutely needed when Gregory Portland was driving to score what was likely going to be the game-winning field goal to get the 1 seed, to get the better playoff route, whatever you want to look at it. Flower Bluff was playing exactly the way they wanted to be. All those sophomores that are playing, that quarterback, Jaden Pelucio, they were all playing great right now, and they've really matured. They're not sophomores anymore when you get to be the 14th game of the season. And I really saw that game as one that they could go punch for a long time with Liberty Hill, and you kind of saw that. But at some point, one stop is all it would have taken, and were they going to get the stop they needed against Liberty Hill, or was Liberty Hill more likely to get the stop? They got pretty fortunate. Two of their top running backs, the Liberty Hill Panthers, went out like in the first quarter of the game with some, re-aggravating some shoulder injuries. And still, it was just plug and play. Liberty Hill just, when you watch some of the highlights of that game, just picking up yards in chunks, who has the ball, and the next thing you know, it's 60 yards downfield in the end zone. Credit to Flower Bluff in the offense, because Pelucio led them, and they threw the ball like you thought. Liberty Hill is a little weak defensively, but that offense is as close to unstoppable as anything there is in Texas high school.
That sophomore quarterback, Pelucio, of course, we saw him play against GPE. We've been following him all season long, being in the same district as Gregory Portland. He has to be in the running as one of the best quarterbacks going forward in this area. Would you agree with that? What I saw, he has a lot of poise. He can make plays with his legs. He has a pretty good arm. I really was impressed what I saw out of the young sophomore out of Flower Bluff.
Oh, without a doubt. Played well beyond his years. He's a guy that can make so much happen, and he's just the perfect trigger man for what Flower Bluff wants to do. Between him and Reed Dooms at Gregory Portland, that's going to be a pretty fun little battle for the next couple of years. There's two sophomores. Those are both guys that I, feel pretty strongly are going to be right in the discussion for the All-South Texas Newcomer of the Year in football with the Caller-Times this year. So, the future is really bright, and just in general, both of those teams have some good young players. They're going to be coming back. So, I'm already circling the calendar next year for Gregory Portland and Flower Bluff, which will likely be again for the district title.
Yeah, no doubt about that. We're with Quinton Martinez of the Corpus Christi Caller-Times. Switching gears to a next game, Quinton. We're going to go Refugio and Shiner. You were at this one. Am I correct?
I was in San Mo.
Okay, so you were up there. Refugio comes away with a 27-21 win over Shiner, and one of the biggest moments in the game was Refugio decided to go for it on that 4th and 12 at its own 13-yard line with about 4 minutes and change to go. The stones of Jason Herring to go for that. Refugio, of course, completes it, and they pull away with the victory. What are your just impressions of the Refugio-Shiner game? It's just another classic in their storied rivalry.
It's interesting. Shiner decided, we have a Texas A&M commit on our sideline, and if we're not going to be the state champions anymore, we're going to ride that guy, and we're going to take our chances that if you can stop him, congratulations. And that worked for a good while. They were moving the chains. Dalton Brooks was just picking up chunks of yards, was one or two ankle tackles away from breaking a couple runs. But at the same time, he got nicked up. He got beat on by the Refugio defense, and more than 20 carries in the first half ended up hurting them more than they helped them. Refugio was so explosive, they get a score on a kickoff return, and they make a 4th down stop and get a one-play drive with a deep pass to their 100-meter state champ in Class 2A track, Ernest Campbell.
Goodness.
And they could score so quickly, and they have such great athletes in the passing game that even though Shiner had almost all of the possession in that game, their explosiveness was a huge play, and Shiner's tactics kind of backfired on them by running Dalton Brooks so much in the first half that he really couldn't do much in the second half because he was banged up.
Yes, and I want to. I guess I don't know if you looked into into Refugio's future opponent. They're going to play Timpson, and I've heard they have a really good quarterback named Terry Bussey. And last year they took that really good Shiner team down to the wire. What do you expect out of Refugio against that in that matchup?
I think since I've been here, there has not been a Region 3 team that has come close to what Timpson is gonna challenge. The Bobcats with this week. I really think that if it's going to happen, this would be the year. Like you said, Terry Bussey is more than likely going to be the Class 2A Player of the Year for the whole state of Texas. Dynamic dual threat guy that's responsible for 7-8 touchdowns a game. He's that guy. In the same way that they had to sell out to stop Dalton Brooks, they're going to have to do everything in their power to stop Terry Bussey. He's that guy. He's the guy that's been talked about all season long. Timpson was there last year took, Shiner's team last year was one of the best Class 2A teams that's come out in a while. So for them to take them all the way to the wire last year says a lot about them, and they've had that motivation. So, will they be able to do it? Going in, I'm going to say Timpson's the favorite. For all the pedigree and for all the Region 4 dominance in winning state titles, it's going to take another spectacular game plan and Refugio firing on all cylinders to be able to win that game next week against Timpson.
We're here with Quinton Martinez of the Caller-Times. One more game to talk about real quickly, Quinton. Let's move on to last night's battle at Buck Stadium and what was an amazing atmosphere. Veterans Memorial versus PSJA North. It was truly a slugfest. I didn't get to make it out to the game, but I did watch the stream. And, of course, Veterans comes away with a hard-fought victory, 20-14. What was it that Veterans did that just out-muscled and outmanned the PSJA North Raiders?
That's exactly right there. Physicality. That's what it came down to. Ben Bittner, the head coach of Veterans Memorial, the first thing he said when he said, how were you able to shut down their run? PSJ North has bullied and beaten and been the physical, more aggressive team all season long. And, with little resistance, they've been scoring points in bunches and they've dominated teams in the trenches. And Vets stood toe to toe with them. The Frere brothers, Josiah Lewis, Nick Guerrero, that defensive front was always the strength of the team. That was an area we were looking at all season long, even in the preseason, as being one of the stoutest units of any team in the Coastal Bend, and it truly played out that way. That's how they won the Edinburgh Vela game in tough conditions, and PSJ North was able to move, but they had to fight for everything they got, and the game came down to twice inside the 10-yard line. PSJA North comes away with no points. They miss a field goal twice, and then another time they get stopped on downs at the 5-yard line. And 2 plays later, Eli Durrett hits Christian Sabsuk, who had an impressive game. He makes a 92-yard touchdown grab, turns on the Jets about halfway through that, and it's 20-7 late in the fourth quarter, and it's kind of all she wrote. But, it came down to physicality and just finding a way, in finding a grit that Vets hasn't had for much of their early history as a team. For all the points that they scored and the championships that they've won, I don't think they've been as defensive-minded and gritty as they have been the last year plus.
Yeah, Quinton, you mentioned how Ben Bittner said that the key for them was physicality. What do you think is, to simplify it a little bit, would be their key to victory against a really good College Station team this Saturday?
They're going to have to really be smart about how they play. They can't have any turnovers. They're going to have to, I think one of the things that will be something to watch next week is Jaden Castañeda. I think only had 1 carry. He was their 1,000-yard running back. They got another really good one in Luke Moya, but, he only had 1 carry in the game again, and he came out injured. So they're going to have to figure out what they're going to be able to do running the ball. That includes having Eli Durrett run the ball a little bit more because he's definitely capable from his quarterback position. But again, they're going to have to try to play as defensive-minded of a game as possible because, especially when you get to the Region 3 level, there's more athletes on the other side of the field. They're used to moving up and down the field. So you're gonna try to win a defensive game, kind of slow it down again, play a game in the 20s, and hope that you can get enough from your offense to be able to win a game like that. But saying that, this isn't their first foray. They saw what it was like. They played tight against Cedar Park for 2 quarters at Alamo Stadium a couple years ago when they were there, and then they let it get away in the second half. A lot of these kids were sophomores on that team or freshman call-ups, so they know what it's like. So that experience is going to be counted on quite a bit next week. It's not the worst matchup in the world, to be able to get College Station compared to who you could have seen possibly, with maybe like a Smithson Valley. But saying that, it's still going to take by far their best game of the season to be able to make it to state.
Where will you be? Will you be at this game, or which game are you anticipating covering? Are you going to be at both games?
I know I'll be in the Alamo Dome on Saturday night covering the 5A game for sure.
Okay.
Thursday's still up in the air. It's possible that I would be in Houston as well for that one.
All righty. Well, hey, Quinton, we appreciate you joining us this morning, breaking it all down for everything here in the regional final round of the Texas State playoffs. Quinton, of course, you can follow him online, hit him up on Twitter, and follow his work at the Corpus Christi Caller-Times. Quinton, we appreciate your time this morning.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
No problem. There he goes. Quinton Martinez breaking it down. Texas high school football. Loved it. That was great.
Yeah, Quinton's
was.
awesome.
Great stuff right there from Quinton. Always
Great follow. Great follow, like you said.
Yes. What's his Twitter right there?
At Q Martinez.
There we go. At Q Martinez on Twitter.
Just wish we had more time because, of course, I'm so much deeper into Texas high school football as I've ever been. So.
I know. I wish we did, but there we go. That was good stuff right there from Quinton.